we're hearing an update on the permitting process for the pallets, pallet shelters. When can we start seeing people go there?
Hopefully as soon as possible. The city's piece of the puzzle has been completed for some time. We understand that the state's working as hard as they can on certain state permits, and I know the providers are anxious to get started just as I am. So unfortunately it's a question for the state as opposed to me, but they've got everything they need from the city and we're ready for it to get started.
I'm hearing about the state fire marshal's office though. Is that all we've been missing here?
I know that was one of the things that we're missing, but again, that's a better question for the housing department. That's the state fire marshal, it's not the city fire marshal. And they have what they need from the city of Providence, and as soon as they can open, we're anxious to start using that as an additional tool in the toolbox to help with this crisis.
You're pressing ahead with the evictions on Sunday?
So we received a request. I received it at 4:45 a.m. this morning from the coalition to give them until Tuesday for the encampment on Houghton Street, that apparently they have identified a location for placement for some of those individuals. And so we have agreed to that request. So the encampment on Houghton Street will have until the end of the day Tuesday. If there's a way to place some of those individuals, we're enthusiastic about it. And so we've given the coalition until Tuesday. The Branch Avenue Interstate 95 encampment, the deadline remains the same.
There's a third one? There's a third encampment?
There's not another immediate notice that I'm aware of at this time. I mean, there are encampments that pop up around the city, but there were only two 48-hour notices given this morning, Houghton Street and Branch Ave. Branch Ave will continue as planned. Houghton Street will now have until Tuesday night.
Mayor, I wonder if you could take a moment and juxtapose this ceremony today with a pretty contentious Leobor debate that was held in the House, and your thoughts on Leobor.
Listen, policing, as I said from the podium, is not just a job, it is a vocation, and I have tremendous respect for the men and women of the Providence Police Department. However, we know, like any large organization, there are individuals who don't follow the policies and procedures, do not perform at the standards that we expect, and so we need a process by which to hold those officers accountable, and it is a small minority. So I have supported the reforms to Leobor. I agree with Representative Hull, who's also a member of the Providence Police Department, who said last night on the floor of the House that this is a step in the right direction, and I think that's true. I think this will make it a little bit easier for us to achieve accountability. And one of the most important changes for a law that hasn't been touched in decades is the ability for the chief and myself to now be able to speak more freely about an incident when it occurred. When that law was written, not every bystander had a camera on their phone, and there wasn't the proliferation of video that we see now, and the amount of misinformation, conclusions that are drawn based upon only partial snippets of video is really not in the best interest of public safety. It can cause widespread concern, and this will free us to be able to speak more freely about our understanding of the circumstances around an incident in question. I think that's a really important update that's necessary for today's era. That just wasn't a relevant factor when the law was originally written.
Back to housing super quick. Talking a bit about these pallet shelters, waiting on the state still to get that green light. Are you frustrated that you can't simply just be able to move some of these people who are in these encampments to these shelters?
I am frustrated. I don't think it's a lack of other government officials trying to do their best. This is a housing solution that doesn't neatly fit into one category or another. Is it a mobile home? Is it a temporary home? Is it a hotel? Is it a motel? The state building code and the state fire code was not written with these structures in mind. So as someone who's worked in government a long time, I'm sympathetic to trying to force existing regulations and laws into new innovations. But I would hope that we could find either waivers or exceptions or frankly a little bit of flexibility, because the alternative is folks living in encampments. And so I don't want to see the perfect be the enemy of the good for a group of folks who are our neighbors trying to find a better housing situation. So I'm confident people are working as fast as they can, but that doesn't mean I'm not frustrated. And of course I am, particularly in the context as we're clearing encampments. But people are working on it, and I'm confident that the state is trying to get this done as fast as possible.
Has the state given you any timeline?
They haven't. I mean, they give me regular updates, but I don't have a deadline.
Mayor, one question. There was a lot of frustration from both the Providence and Pawtucket delegation last night. Should Leobor simply be ended?
I think I believe in incremental change, and I think that compromise is necessary in order to keep everybody at the table. This was a compromise reached with the support of law enforcement, with the support of the League of Cities and Towns, all municipal leaders like myself, and I think that it is the right way forward. One of the things in the abolish Leobor debate that I think gets missed or ignored, if we didn't have Leobor, we still have collective bargaining agreements in place, and we still would need to abide by the labor contract that we have entered into with, in my case, the Providence FOP. And so there wouldn't be that dramatic of a change because we have other requirements and restrictions that we've agreed to through our CBA. I think this compromise is, as I said, the right step forward and real progress.